these letters did not have verse and chapter designations in them when they were written. That came later, which allows us to have markers in there, but you have to sort of have some continuation from time to time of what the story was. So we have this continuation of the idea of what faith means and how we are to live it out. And he uses some imagery here, some analogies that are very relevant to our world today, I think, and gives us an idea of how we are to be working in the life that we have to move forward. Hebrews chapter 12. Start reading in verse 1. Therefore, as we've said, anytime the word therefore is used, it's a transition, talking about what he had been discussing with now there's going to be an application of that truth. And we talk about faith, all in chapter 11. It says, therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of God, at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. He talks about the great cloud of witnesses. He had just been talking about all these people in chapter 11, illustrations and examples of faith. And he uses this word, this idea here of portraying this passage of life that we're in to a race. And I think of it more as a marathon. In a marathon, not that I would know, but I did run. I have did a couple of 5K races back years ago, and in a small regard, that same idea of it is sustaining what you have started, continuing when it seems to be difficult. Whenever I was 25, when I decided I was going to join the Air Force and go into Officer Candidate School, and 26 was the cutoff for Officer Candidate School. So I was pushing the envelope and had a bad leg and a lot of other issues. And so one of the things that the recruiter was saying, well, when you get to basic out in Texas, you have to be able to run an 8-minute mile whenever you go in order to be moving forward. I thought, that's no problem whatsoever. It was more of a problem than I thought, because I had not been doing that. I'd been doing some jogging around, but then your timing, and I was at Gardner Webb, and the track there, of course, was a quarter-mile track, so that's 2 minutes a lap. Not a problem until you got your little watch on, and you're about 2/3 of the way through, and you've already met your 2-minute goal. So that means the next one I'm going to have to double up on and get faster. That's a great theory, but it's very difficult to practice when that's not what you do. So I had to really work at that and to learn that and to push towards that end. The athleticism was more so in my mind than in my body. We hadn't agreed on between those two parts of things at this point. As it turns out, I was not able to move into that position. So while it was not for naught, it didn't have its accomplished goals there. But the training, the need was to accomplish a goal and was to put myself in a position to be able to do something. It wasn't just the act itself. It was to be able to move forward and to do something else. And in this passage, he talks about, since we are surrounded by this heritage, this great cloud of witnesses, he says, lay aside every encumbrance and the sin that so easily entangles us. We don't run those races in a suit normally. You put yourself in a position, you put on some shorts and a light shirt. Hopefully you have shoes that are sufficient, and you equip yourself to be about that, to do that thing that you're called to do. You don't want those things that weigh you down and to pull you down and prevent you from achieving the goal. Because the training, what you're doing, the moving forward, the learning, the process is to get you to where you need to be. There was a book written, I think, early 70s called The Joy of Running. I always felt that was a very disingenuous time. There was the beauty of running and the purpose of running. I never got the joy of running part. You get that point where you have this, your mind is filled with endorphins and you're just gliding along. 280 pounds don't glide. It don't, at that point, there's not this smooth gait, and you're just in this effortless, it is a slog. It is purposeful, it's deliberate. So I never had that joy of running, but you work for this purpose and you try to accomplish this. And the image that he gives us here is that thing. We lay aside those things that prevent us from getting to where we need to be. You try to reach the point that will accomplish the goal. So when he talks about, in this passage, lay aside encumbrances, those things which prevent you from reaching, and the sin which so easily entangles us. Keep thinking about, the trails that we might find ourselves on. Up to Flat Rock is one of the little trails that Cindy and I really enjoy up on the Parkway. Great, it's easy, 20 minutes, not a big problem. Unless you forget to pick your feet up on the roots and the rocks and all like that. And then it becomes a little bit of a problem. You have to be careful where you're going. Beacon Heights, I love going up on Beacon Heights, but it's rocky. You've got to watch where you're stepping. It can entangle you. Those roots, those things can trip you up. So he says, be aware of that and run with endurance the race that is set before us. We must flee from those things which prevent us in the process. And in all this discussion, we as believers need to understand that the process that we are on is discipleship, growth, maturing. It is living out our life. The walk that we are on is not short. It is not a sprint. It is not something to be accomplished and done. Checked off. I have done this. I have accomplished this. It is all to reach the goal. It is to prepare us for that which we are designed for. And we're just in the process of being that. Eugene Peterson has a book called Along Obedience in the Same Direction. I like that. Along obedience in the same directions, which I found out was actually a Nietzsche quote, which I didn't like it as much at that point. But along obedience in the same direction, moving towards the goal with a definitive purpose, with with a design. And our Christian walk, so many times when folks come in and they're looking for the short-term solution, they're looking for something that's going to happen now. And then we begin this process of learning and running the race, and it becomes difficult. But that's what we're called to be. And it's also, I think, should be encouraging to us that we don't have to be the ones who run a 2-hour, 26-mile marathon right off. And some of us, good chances we're never going to do that. But we can be in the process of learning how to be in the race for our own self. Back when I was trying to do this and reading a lot and trying to get motivated to run, everyone said, don't worry about the overall time of everybody around you. Just be concerned with your personal best. Remember that phrase was thrown around? Your personal best. Well, my personal best was not what I was aspiring to. I was motivated because I'm just a tad on the competitive side. Cindy rolls her eyes at that point. I am competitive. So, they said, don't worry, just run your own race, do your own personal, be within yourself. I'm thinking, I'm going to beat that person. I'm going to be better. And then I found it was very frustrating because that was probably not going to happen. So then I had to concentrate on my personal, but where am I? And in our spiritual walk, oftentimes we have to realize where I am is me dependent. I look at someone else, or I look at the situation, or I look at circumstances, or people's Christian life, or their witness, or their testimony, or their growth, or their abilities, and I want to go, that's where I want to be. But he says this is about you, your walk. You run the race for you. You run this according to your pace, what's happening in your life. You set aside those things which entangle you. The run part there, the Greek word is the root word that we get the word agony from. I thought that was so inappropriate. It's not a short burst, but a long marathon. It is hard. It is arduous. It is difficult. Perseverance is where when you want to quit, you don't quit. Whenever you want to just stop, you continue to go. Several years ago, when they were still running the bear race at Linville, before the Highland Games every year, I'd signed up and I was training. I'd run my 5 miles, 6 miles a day. I was getting ready to, signed up and got you have a lottery because there's 800 other unenlightened people who want to do the same thing. And there's a lottery, so I got a number that year. I was going to run. And then I developed plantar fasciitis and could no longer train and run, so I was unable to. It was very frustrating. But then part of me was going, at least now, I don't have to worry about failing. Because the goal, whenever all those 800 people start out, going up and they go up Old John Lassie Road and go across at the McRae Meadows and around and then go on up to the Top Shop. It's wonderful. There's people doing that and they're just enjoying it. And then there's a van that comes behind everybody. That if you're not keeping a certain pace, they go, you need to come here. And you get picked up by the van. My goal was to not get picked up by the straggler van. I knew I would not do well, but my goal was to stay out of the white van. That would be embarrassing. You're not doing this. We're afraid you're going to die. Don't say. So I didn't have to worry about failing. So part of it was kind of relieved at that. But I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I won't get to climb 2,700 feet in 5 miles. It'd be great. But the race, everybody says the race is what important, your personal best. So this perseverance to when you want to quit, you continue on, is what he's talking about here. The patience. You ever remember, see the movie Hidalgo? About the horse race. Great movie, by the way. And from what I've read, has absolutely no basis in truth whatsoever, but it's a great story. But at the start of this race across the Arabian Peninsula, all these wonderful horses, and they start out and it's like everybody's running so hard, and this is for days. And then they get away from the little town, everybody just sort of stops, and Hidalgo, the horse there that slows down, and his rider looks down and says, yeah, that was all just for show anyway. That first burst, and now the slog begins. The work begins. The movement begins. We are dedicated to finish. We are moving towards the end. And his whole writing here to these people has said, all these things have happened. You've had this wonderful burst. You've had this immense movement of the Spirit. He said, don't get weighed down with all of the other stuff. Be about the faith that I was talking to you about in chapter 11. Faith of those things that you don't know, that are unseen to you, that the course is marked out for you. Remember in the Boston Marathon a few years ago, there was a lady that started out and then she disappeared then showed up close to the finish line. They found out she had taken a taxi for part of it. That's not what they were talking about when they said finish the race. It's a marked course. You've got to go a certain way. You have to do the things, be dedicated to finish, be patient and don't rush. Continue the path day after day. How we move in this process, I think is really important to us as believers as we become more of what the Lord's called us to be and realize that it's a product of learning His Word, of being engaged. It's not something that you go through for a quick study and habit. Whenever I was in college, they had semesters, right? And some colleges had quarters. I always liked semesters better because you didn't have to register near as many times. Our daughter is in college now, and they've got these mini-mesters where there are 2 classes over, 8 weeks or something like that. Very intense. To me, you're kind of losing the whole idea here of study. It's like we're going to finish up, and it's great for her. She's going to finish up her baccalaureate degree in December after 18 months or something like that. After she already had 1 degree, but this was the continuation. But it's short. It's intense. It's perfect. You're getting to the goal. Christianity is not like that. We don't shorten or truncate the process. It is what we are in the process of becoming, and He is constantly revealing Himself to us in new and wonderful ways. And that's the joy of moving forward with Him. The only way that we do this, as he says here, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith. We set aside those things which encumber us, which weigh us down, and we fix our eyes on Him. You continually have that goal in mind, to draw nearer to Him, to follow Him, to learn more, to give meaning to what we are doing, to have a purpose beyond just the moment. I find it much easier whenever I was able to run and all like that, to do it outside. Treadmills bore me. Treadmills are difficult. You do the same thing. You're running, you're doing. But something about it's just like not natural. It's boring. It's the same. You don't feel you're accomplishing anything, and so you often have to have something. I see people at the YMCA, they're reading a book or they're having the headphones on. They're watching the TVs that's up there, just to try to get through. I'm distracted from what I'm doing. If you're running outside, you kind of have to pay attention, or the ground comes up to meet you very suddenly sometimes. And you stumble and you fall if you don't watch where you're going. It's not the constant sameness. Our lives, our moving through this Christian walk is a series of stops and starts. It is a process that we are on. It is the journey of discovery and revelation. The beginning to the end, we are all moving in the same pathway. He said, this is what I've called you to do. And that's just what's so encouraging, I think, when we look to him for the example who followed the purpose to its ultimate end. He said, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, who followed that to its ultimate end, knowing full well the results of that, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of God the Father. He completed the task. He completed it and moved forward. And we, to have our eyes upon him, allows us to move through these phases of our life and the process that we are of learning and growing and maturing, pressing on to the end. Jesus did not end up where he began. His short ministry here was from obscurity to, of course, the prominence that we know about. Our lives as believers are a process of constantly growing and maturing. The more that we engage, the more that we apply, the more that we study, the more that we enlarge ourselves to receive what the Lord has, he builds in us the confidence to move forward, precept upon precept. And these things that entangle us, our humanity, our pride, our lack of focus, the distractions that we have, we find the ability to emerge victorious. And to me, whenever I am studying or have studied through the years and achieve a new awareness, something is shown to me, I have a new closeness with him, it is like that personal best. It is like achieving something new that encourages me to go on, because every success, everything that we do moves us into another phase. It's a never-ending, ever-sustaining process, moving us toward him. There's not a, I am done, I am finished, I am complete. We always are moved forward. We're called to be participants in this race and not just spectators. I was watching a little bit of the British Open yesterday, and when it was over, I was distracted and I looked up and they were televising the Tour de France bicycle race. Again, something I probably never going to do. But they were showing these people, and they were in these little towns they were going through, and people were lining, and they were yelling, and they were so encouraged, and they were out there, and they were involved in it. And I wanted to go, y'all are not right? You're just standing there. You're cheering on. You're not participating in any, NASCAR race, any sporting event you go to. There's a lot of folks there that believe their person is doing better because of the efforts that they have of cheering them on. I am vicariously a part of that. See, we have the opportunity to be on the inside, not the outside. We're not just spectators. We're not just the cheerleaders. We are the participants in this. And he calls us to participate, to prepare for the race, not just as we anticipate doing it, but actually doing it. You could always tell back whenever I was running with other people, if someone showed up and they had a really clean pair of shorts and shoes that looked like they just had come out of the box, chances are you would not have to worry about those people. Now, if somebody showed up, an old beat up t-shirt, arms cut out of it, shoes looked like they were pretty ragged, maybe had a piece or two of duct tape around them, you thought, that's the guy I've got to worry about. Because they've done it. It wasn't just the show. They were participating. So in our Christian walk, sometimes we are not the prettiest and not the most visual, not the flashiest, but we are engaged, and the Lord is using us. We may not be the biggest, but he is moving us to this course that he set for us. And I'm excited to see what he has for us yet into the future. Our individual lives, as we grow and mature, will build itself into the life of the church. The church only grows as far as our individual spiritual lives will take us. So we need to look to Jesus both for an example of perseverance and also for the goal to which we want to aspire. As you run the race, as you move forward in the path, you expect the prize. If you were to happen to be one of those ones that finished up on Grandfather Mountain, you would not want them to go, oh man, we forgot the medals. Sorry about that. You would want something to show that you had accomplished that. In our life as believers, the ultimate goal, our prize, is to be his, to be numbered among his people, to be a part of the family, to be called by his name, to have our goal set before us, to achieve it, to receive it. For I know that I have entrusted it to him against that day, that he will carry me into his presence. You throw off all that which encumbers you, which prevents you, which inhibits you, and you focus on him. That's all he's calling us to do, is to run the race. Don't have to be first, but we do have to participate. You have to be the one who continues. There are times it seems to be difficult, but the Lord, I think, moves us every day. He just shows us in this chapter 11 the faith, listing of those wonderful examples. He says, by faith we achieve. By faith we walk. Continue to push forward. Don't be discouraged when there are days that you feel that it's just not for any. I can't get into this. There's nothing happening. Lord, where are you? Don't be discouraged by the deceiver putting obstacles in your way. Our goal, our purpose, is to run the race, to continue to press forward. Our eyes